Joining me from Riga today, Artis Pabriks, Deputy Prime Minister of Latvia, also Defence Minister. Thank you for joining us today. COVID-19, is Latvia prepared for this? Is Europe prepared to deal with this crisis?
Well, it depends how seriously we consider COVID-19. If we ask experts from the health departments, then people say that actually it's exaggerated stress on the one side or danger, but on the other side, of course, you can partly compare it with the flu or any other infections, and preparedness is never too much. I think that there are a number of problems what we are facing here. One is disease as such, other is disruption of transport, disruption of economy, and other issues. So if we want to make a broader answer to this question, are we ready for such type or any other types of diseases, then we should speak about civil readiness and we should speak about societal readiness. And I think where is a mistake of us Europeans, or let's say developed societies in general, is that we are trying to differentiate between some kind of civil readiness and also hybrid or military readiness, because these things are always going hand in hand together. And in our case, in Latvian case, since we are a small nation and we are basically frequently facing asymmetric threat because we have a large neighbor, unpredictable neighbor sometimes, we are trying now introduce so-called comprehensive defense system, which brings together three facets of society, which means defense institutions as Ministry of Defense and Ministry of Interior on one side, then all the state institutions, including Health Ministry, Transport Ministry, Ministry of Education, everything, then industries and economy, and then human society.
You've got this joined-up approach, but that's the problem, isn't it? Is that people just think in terms of defence, and yet we're seeing, as you describe, a situation which touches on all areas of society, but the defence element doesn't seem prevalent right now. How does this change? How do you change this mindset? And bear in mind that we're dealing with disinformation today with this health crisis, as you would expect in a hybrid warfare situation as well.
Well, you have to educate, first of all, leaders and institutional leaders and society as such. And this is what we are doing, because we have been, during the last year, making a number of exercises. Basically, there have been crisis exercises in each and every ministry. Because if we are facing, for instance, war or hybrid war, which would mean disruption of electricity, disruption of water, poisoning of water, terrorist attacks, any kind of attacks on our computer systems, then it's not just Defense Ministry. Defense Ministry and our armed forces will be, of course, assisting, but they might be also busy with conventional threat. So we have to combine this. The problem is that society, our human society, have been developing very fast, but with different threats, like communication threats, like cyber threats, but institutions have been remaining in the same pattern. So society and people on the street, they were in Europe used for peaceful times. The threats are not coming, and they simply think that somebody will take care of this.
You've launched a campaign called 72 Hours in Latvia as well, and it takes an all-of-society approach as well. When we look at Milan and how the supermarkets are emptying, how people are afraid to travel at the moment, what's behind this thinking 72 hours? What does the citizen need to do?
Well, we are not the only ones actually who think about 72 hours. It's the same idea you can find in our neighboring countries like Finland and Sweden as well. The idea is very simple. If we have a major disruptions, either because of the war or because of some kind of a hybrid attacks or natural disasters, there might be a situation where state institutions cannot help your family or you as an individual for the first 2 or 3 days. So you need a certain supply of medicine, of water, preparedness to guarantee your energy security. And so we prepared a list and education for civil society, how they should prepare and what they should keep also at home. So maybe it seems a little bit crazy, I would say, that you need to have some kind of food reserves or paper reserves or reserves with matches and electricity and water. But on the other hand, if we have such a preparedness also regarding the medicine, then people know how to act. They will not go into panic. And if there is no panic, then society is much more resilient against any kind of threat.
When you talk about resilience, so what's the consequence of panic? What's the consequence of not being prepared?
Well, if you don't have a training, no matter what, is it martial arts on the street or anything else, you are falling into panic. What we are willing to do, we are willing to inform people about dangerous things, about unpleasant things, about things what people don't like to think, because it's not maybe nice to think about war and crisis. But at the same time, if they are devoting even a little bit of attention to this, then if such type of crisis, even on the smaller scale, are appearing, they will know how to act. They will be trained in their mindset. And for us Europeans, I think it's highly important to think in those terms also, since we have this possibility to come together in Brussels. We have a number of EU institutions which doesn't exist in any other continent. So we should use also European Union institutions to build up such type of resilience, exchanges experiences among countries, and not to talk, let's say, a big stuff about, I don't know, European army, for example, or something very, very visionary, while forgetting small things. And these are the small things that you can implement in any community, in any society, by making people prepared. So basically, we learn from small countries like ours, or like Switzerland, or Singapore, like Israel, like Finland, where people are actually prepared to think in the crisis dimension.
Artis Pabriks, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.